this 34-year-old gamer who spent his entire adult life alone in his room, one day, was hit by a truck driver. In his final moments, he had one regret, that he was dying as a virgin. But something felt wrong. Darkness was replaced with light. He opened his eyes and saw a strange man and an attractive woman and wondered what the hell was going on when the man kissed him straight on the lips. But immediately shifted his attention to melons before him. Refusing to let this opportunity slip away from him, he reached out to cop a feel, but after seeing his tiny arms he got in his previous life had been left behind and he has reincarnated as a baby. His new parents are Paul and Zenith. This 34-year-old is called Rudy Greyrat in his new life. As he grows old, Rudy does not hold back in fulfilling all his perverted desires, unwilling to die again with the same regrets. Lilia, who is a maid of the Greyrat family, sees the boy's negative desire and fears the perverted eyes that stare underneath her breasts and tries to stay away from him. Zenith comforts Lilia, confident that a baby his age doesn't know any better than that. Rudy figures he must be in a rural European village. But after he sees Paul swing around a sword and Zenith heal him of his wounds, Rudy quickly realizes that he is reborn in a different world entirely. At a very young age, Rudy masters the language of his new world. At age 2, he decides to try and learn magic himself. Finding a book on it, he takes a year to learn how to read and finds out he can use magic without incantations with his knowledge of video games. In no time, Rudy is able to cast intermediate magic spells, destroying his house. Zenith is ecstatic to find out that Rudy is a magical genius and immediately finds him a tutor named Roxy. Roxy, who isn't too thrilled about teaching a kid so young, not believing his parents. But when he gets distracted during an incantation, she learns that he can cast without them becoming jealous, though recognizing his potential. As for Rudius, he has a second chance and promises himself he won't waste it as he did in his previous life. Practicing earth magic and passing out, he remembers how he threw it away to save some kids. Maybe it wasn't that useless. After 6 months, he can use intermediate magic with no problem. During a lesson, Rudius learns that Roxy is a demon. That's why his parents were surprised to see her. There's a demon race, the Superd, who has been feared for the past 400 years. Sometimes her hair is mistaken as green like the Superds. After a year and a half, they celebrate his 5th birthday. Apparently, they only celebrate every 5 years. He receives a real sword from his dad, a new book from his mom, and a wand from Roxy, but she's afraid there's nothing more she can teach him about magic. So the next day she plans on holding his graduation ceremony. Being bullied in his previous life left him with the crippling fear of going outside. Rudius becomes terrified when Roxy tells him they must leave town for the ceremony, but when he realizes the villagers aren't looking at him but greeting Roxy, his anxiety is put at ease. She shows him the strongest water spell she can cast.
Rain, sweep all else away! Cumulonimbus!
Roxy creates a dark cloud and causes torrential rain to pour down, with lightning strikes. Inspired and awed by all that Roxy has taught him, Rudy joyfully chants the words and summons an immense cloud that is a sight to behold.
Cumulonimbus! Look at that!
After teaching her best spell, Roxy acknowledges Rudy was able to learn all that she has mastered in a lifetime. Rudy successfully graduates. Though he isn't ready to say goodbye to the person who got him to go outside after 20 years, his parents are relieved that he's going outside now. They thought he was sickly, never crying as a baby or doing most things regular kids do. He notices 3 kids ganging up on one another and decides to save them, remembering all the times the same thing happened to him. While trying to help clean him up, Rudius notices his green hair, reminding him of Roxy's story of the Superds who have green hair and a red gem on their forehead. He's relieved at the absence of a gem. Rudius decides to befriend and teach magic to the kid, who introduces himself as Sylph. He's proud of himself for sticking up for someone, but when he gets home, his dad isn't too happy that he allegedly gave one of the bullies a black eye. For the next 6 months, Rudy continued to teach Sylph about magic and discovered that he was not as unique as he thought. When they go to take a bath after getting caught in the rain, Rudy discovers that Sylph is actually Sylphiette. Only to make things worse by admitting he thought she was a boy the whole time. Some time goes by before she approaches Rudy, and the two make up. Later on, Paul and Zenith were delighted when they found out that Zenith was pregnant. Unfortunately, Lilia, their maid, announced she too was expecting a baby. Upon hearing, Paul immediately accepted his mistake as the baby was his. Faced with a potential crisis if Lilia had to leave for her hometown with an infant, Rudy took matters into his own hands by blaming Paul for the whole incident. Surprisingly, this kind act won him admiration from Lilia, who even became part of the family after that day. Ultimately, this left Rudy with two adorable little sisters in his life. The topic of school comes up, and Rudy considers it since he hasn't been making progress in swordsmanship or magic. But Société doesn't want him to leave. One day he receives a letter from Roxy urging him to go to Renault Magic Academy. He asks his parents whether he could take Sophie. The family doesn't have enough money to send them both, so Rudius figures it's time to get a job. A friend of the family, Ghislaine, arrives soon after and Paul ends up knocking Rudius out. He wakes up in a cart with Ghislaine without any idea of what's going on. She throws him a letter that his father wrote. Apparently he's being sent to teach magic to another child for the next 5 years. The letter also tells him not to return home or contact Silhouette as she's been hindering his development. Arriving in Rala, he meets Philip Boreas, Grey Rat, the mayor and his father's cousin. He had no clue he had family with such high standing, nor does he know he'll be teaching Philip's daughter, who beats him up during their first meeting. Now it makes sense that nobody wants to teach her. So Rudius comes up with a plan to stage a kidnapping and show Eris how useful magic can be. The kidnappers are a little too good at their job. She's still hostile to Rudius, who plans to leave her behind. If she refuses to cooperate, they escape, and make their way back to ROA, though it turns out the kidnapping wasn't as staged as they planned. After he rescues her, instead of taking the scoundrel's bribe, she begrudgingly accepts him as a tutor. Philip is grateful, but cautions him against revealing his family ties due to the political landscape. It's official, his first job. Ghislaine takes up his swordsmanship training, while Rudius teaches her and Eris how to use magic and how to read, write, and do arithmetic, but not long after, Eris starts acting up again, so he decides to give her a day off. Once in a while won't hurt, and they all go to town for the day. A merchant tries to sell him an aphrodisiac as he attempts to figure out the market price of general goods and convert it into yen. After Rudius refuses to let Eris buy him a book, he decides to get her an allowance. She finally starts paying attention in class after getting regular time off, and she buys him a present with her new allowance. Eric's 10th birthday is fast approaching. As a noble, she needs to learn how to dance. Giving up a few lessons a week to her dance teacher, Rudius finally has some free time of his own. He decides to learn new languages, but finds Demon God especially difficult. Apparently, dance instructions aren't going so well, so the teacher asks Rudius to convince Eris to return to classes. His free time is short-lived. As he gets sucked into helping with dance practice, Rudius begins selling some of the figurines he's learning to make using earth magic for some extra money. One day he receives a package from Roxy. Since he's still having trouble figuring out the demon god language, she handwrites a textbook for him. Roxy's new student is obsessed with her and ends up getting his hands on one of Rudius' Roxy figurines. At Arrest's 10th birthday party, she embarrasses herself during her first dance. Nobles aren't supposed to have 2 left feet, so Rudius ends up stepping in and uses her swordsmanship training. Using feints keeps her from fainting. Rudius gives both Eris and Ghislaine once as a present, though she's more excited about receiving a ring from Ghislaine. He accidentally interrupts her grandfather Soros with a maid. He points out a giant red orb in the sky, though tells him not to worry about it. It only gets bigger over time. Rudius overhears planning for his surprise 10th birthday party. He learns why they can't be too public about his presence. It isn't Paul's reputation, but his name. They gathered the best materials in the kingdom to make a staff for his birthday. He's disappointed that his family couldn't come, finding out that there's been an increase in monster activity lately. Eric's mom breaks down, saying she'll adopt him. No, he should marry her daughter. Philip explains that his sons were adopted by his brother, so his wife hated him until now. But if he so chooses, Philip will handle the coup, and all he needs to do is marry Harris. She waits for Rudius in his room that night. But he goes a bit too far and she pushes him away. He apologizes, she forgives him and makes a promise to wait until his 15th birthday. Back in his hometown, his father is busy fighting monsters while a strange Mona cloud appears in the sky. Rudius takes Eris and Ghislaine out of the city to show them his strongest spell, using his new staff when they're attacked. It's someone named Almanji, allegedly sent by the legendary hero Perugia Stola to find the source of the disturbance. Ghislaine reveals she's a sword king while protecting and vouching for him. Suddenly, there's a giant flash of blue light. Rudy holds onto Eris as they're enveloped. Rudius wakes up in a strange liminal space looking like his past self. A mysterious white figure introduces himself as the man-god and offers to help. After watching him for a while, he's relieved to find he's still alive in the new world and not die again. Apparently, he's now stranded on the demon continent. The man-god tells him that when he wakes up, there will be a man there. He just has to rely on him and help him no matter what. He wakes to find a man, with green hair and something red in the center of his forehead. At first he's wary, but when he speaks demon god, the man is taken aback at how courteous Rudius is, admitting that it would be rude to fear the man who saved them. Introducing himself as Roared Superbia, he swears to protect the children while helping them get back home. Eris wakes up terrified when if you like our video, do hit the subscribe button and press bell icon. It will be a great help.